Welcome everybody. My name is Kevin Morrissey. I'll be talking on behalf of Microgrids Solutions about our DERMS microgrid product. Microgrids Solutions is a group company of Mitsubishi Electric. This is the booth we're in right now. What we do, we have a variety of DERMS solutions. Microgrids is the third one from the left, Strata Resilience. That's going to be the one I talk about today. StrataGrid is our grid DERMS product. Cirrus Flex is our VPP CNI DERMS product, and then we also have edge controllers which work with all of our DERMS products, including Strata Resilience, which is the one that we're talking about right now. So talking a little bit about microgrids and what we do with them. I mean, a microgrid is all about resilience. It's keeping energy when there might not be a reliable supply from the larger grid. It's connecting the grid services. You might have a range of DERs or various generating assets. Those might be thermal generators, but in a lot of cases, what we see more and more is we're connecting wind power, solar storage, both grid scale storage as well as rooftop solar and basement storage as well. This variety of mix, they have to come together to provide resilience for a small location. So this is not a system-wide DERMS product. This is a very localized DERMS product, even though it does run on some similar technology as our DERMS product. So a little bit about what makes our microgrid product what it is we care a lot about the state transitions. A lot of times when we're not only dealing with completely isolated systems, we're dealing with systems that have to go between states. They have to go between grid-connected mode, where they might be performing economic operations. These might be day-ahead scheduling, peak shaving optimization. They might be bidding into markets or participating in demand response. In general, these assets, these batteries and these other resources are sitting idle, waiting for that time when they get to isolate and go off the grid. But while they're still grid connected, they can be making money, and we facilitate that with a lot of our optimization and forecasting routines. But immediately when we detect that we might have to island, that's when we go into prepare to island mode. So we're shifting from business as usual, day in, day out, optimization, to a preparation mode. This might be due to, say, a public safety power shutoff in California, maybe a wildfire threat, maybe just a storm is coming in. We might get an alert from a larger system, or we might need to forecast these conditions based on weather, based on whatever our DER are going to produce, to identify when we might need to start islanding. And once we have that time frame in place, we can start a pre-optimization or a pre-charge routine on any of the storage or prepare all of our assets. That's when we start going to either intentional islands or auto islands. Intentional islands, that's when somebody presses a button and says, hey, I want to start islanding, I want to start separating from the grid, even though the grid might be still up. An auto island, that will be more often an unplanned event. So maybe the grid's already gone down and we need to black start with our DER or with our generation resources. In some cases, you don't have to go down to black start, but that requires a lot of uninterruptible power systems. So most of the time, we are looking at a black start situation with the unplanned islands. A quick case study. We've recently completed one of our largest microgrid installations in Lac-Mégantic. It's one that we're very proud of. It's pulling together in a partnership with Hydro-Quebec, which is the utility there, as well as the town of Lac-Mégantic and the government of Canada, a really wide, diverse range of DER resources. You can see the top ones are all front-of-the-meter resources. These are grid-scale batteries. You can see a 600 kilowatt and kilowatt-hour capacity battery. We've got an enormous sports center full of PV solar generation, and then a diesel generator that comes in and out depending on the season. They'll cart it in, they'll cart it out. We can't always rely on that fuel generation, but that diesel, that's the only fuel-based generator that we have at this microgrid. So almost all of the time we're relying on that battery, the large battery, to be a grid-forming asset. And that's a key component of a microgrid, is having one asset that can set the frequency and set the voltage of the microgrid and maintain stability. Beneath that, we have a variety of behind-the-meter devices. There's a number of smart buildings that Lac-Mégantic has connected, and each one of them has some mix of rooftop solar, maybe storage in the basement, and as well as building management systems. So a BMS it's a controllable building. It's a building you can say, hey, I need to dial back the thermostats, and maybe I can give it a kilowatt set point. of how much power to give me or how much power to reduce, or maybe I can just say, okay, well turn off the boilers X%, and then you get an undefined amount of power in return. So all of these have to come together to balance the energy mix and make sure that we're net zero on our microgrid, because when we're islanded, we can't draw any power from the grid. So just an example of what a microgrid might look like in our DERMS system. So each of these assets, especially the color assets, they're color coded based on their current states. So you see the yellow ones are currently curtailed based on real-time conditions. We can't always be generating fully, especially if we're islanded. The green assets are generating fully, or at least they're in grid forming mode. We've got our diesel generator. It's colored white because it's not always there. Sometimes it's connected, sometimes it's not. And we get live status reports from all of our telemetry and all of our switches, so we can manage the power in real time. I'll run through a couple use cases just to give you a sense for some of the systems that Strata Resilience goes through. If I can play this video. So what's going to happen here is the battery, the big battery on the left, this front of the meter BESS, that is our grid forming asset. But it's currently draining very quickly because we might be running, this system could be running at 500 kilowatts, and this is only a 600 kilowatt hour battery. That could drain very quickly. So what we do is, what's happened just now, it's hit its minimum charge and we have to transition to diesel power. So the grid forming component has to shift from that battery to the diesel generator in order to maintain the live microgrid. And that diesel, that'll allow us to recharge the battery and make the most use of it. So there are some scenarios, even though we intend for the battery and the green renewable energy, the solar, to be the driving power behind this microgrid, we might have to rely on the diesel in backup situations. Say there's just not the solar. We forecasted there to be solar, but the clouds come in. We might have to transition to the diesel, and that's what's showing up here is we just have to kick on the diesel in order to maintain grid stability. Another example, there we go. Another example here, just some, not everything, a lot of things, a lot of control actions when you're controlling a microgrid have to be automated in order to have that fast response, in order to maintain stability, but some things can be manual. You can see right here, I'm throwing this battery, it's a PV system into manual mode so that we can give it hard set points. It's really important to give the operators of the microgrid control over their assets. They need to know that they can pull the plug or they can run maintenance, they can turn things on and off at will, and that the microgrid will stay up. So what I'm doing right now, they need to do some maintenance on this PV array. So they need to take it off manual mode, pull the breaker, allow their guys to set the set points to 0 and allow their guys to do maintenance. So that's all happening in our configurable dashboard. We're giving them buttons and set points that they can just type in and trust that their assets are going to do what they want them to do, which is very important because at the end of the day, the accountability of running this microgrid comes down to the operator, and we're just providing software that allows them to get their job done. So that's all I have to show for today. If you have any questions, I'm really happy to answer any Q&A. You're also welcome to talk to me. Again, I'm the R&D manager, Kevin Morrissey at Smarter Grid Solutions. We have our range of product team and development team and delivery teams all in the booth today. And you can also reach out to any of us an email after the show as well.